Hello, and welcome. So, you may have heard these terms thrown around: captioning, closed captioning, subtitles, and people may have told you that it's a really good idea to include them in your videos and your live streams, but maybe you're not quite sure what they all mean. And you may have also heard that they help with SEO, which they do. So, we're going to talk about all three of these: what's the same, what's different, and a little bit about how you can go and use these in your videos, in your live streams, and so on and so forth. So let's get started. Hello, everybody, and welcome. We are talking about captions, subtitles, and closed captions. I wanted to get the order right because I wanted some space between the captions and the subtitles and all that. So we're going to talk about what these are, what they really mean. A lot of people use the terms interchangeably, which is not a terrible thing to do, but they do have specific meanings, and they do also have particular times that, like, one is better than the other or one is more typical than the other. So we're going to talk about all those different things so that everybody understands what we're talking about, how they're built out, and then we'll talk about some nuances that have come up over time, particularly in the live streaming approach of things. So yeah, it's an interesting topic, and it's something that pops up from time to time. And we're all about clarity and making sure that everybody has the tools they need in order to do their best job. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to pull up a slide deck. We haven't done that in a while, so let's see if this is working. Okay, and we'll take that away, and we should be good to go. Alrighty. So let's start off with closed captioning. So this is basically the text that shows up that mimics the audio track of the TV show, the movie, any other video you're watching. Now, this can also be something that's happening on a live stream. So again, it all depends. But it's always, synchronized with the audio track and the action on the screen. And the reason we make that part of that stand out is because closed captioning tends to be more than just what's being said. It also tends to include other elements of whatever it is that's being used. So that could be stuff like, the phone is ringing, or dogs barking, or whatever else, is going on and surrounding, particularly if it is integral to the storyline or whatever it is that's being talked about. The level of it will change depending on a lot of different variables, but it does tend to include a more inclusive part of what is being shown on the screen, beyond just the audio track. Or in some cases, it's actually a direct feed of the script that was used for the particular show. Okay, there we go. So let's keep going. There are different file formats that are used for this type of captioning. I won't get into all the details, but I did want to include it here in case anybody is interested. Very often, closed captioning is added on after the fact, but like I said, it can happen live. But either way, it's going to be one of these file formats that's being used. And that's how it's being attached to the actual presentation of what's going on. Now, captions, or open captions is another way that a lot of people refer to them, is generally just, at this point, what's the text or the script, being shown on the screen as the video is being played or the live streaming is happening. And this too has very specific file formats associated with it. So again, I'm just going to leave this up here for a second for anybody who's interested in that kind of nuance. We won't get into too much detail on it. If, however, you are interested in this topic, I am absolutely happy to go ahead and get into this in more detail if you'd like. So you'll notice that this has got 4 different file formats that are typically used. Now, there are more out there, whereas the other one was 3. So just for, variation, like there's specific reasons why different things are used for different combinations, and it has a lot to do with the environment it's being shared in and where it is that it's being broadcast to, all that kind of good stuff. Now, subtitles, just to kind of balance this out, are kind of the same thing in that, like, you're going to see text on the screen, but usually they are structured in a way and they are added into a presentation of whatever sort, movie, TV, what have you, with the assumption that people can hear what's happening, but maybe they don't speak the same language as what's being said in the video or the recording, or even sometimes just live presentations. So, for example, you see this a lot in movies and TV shows where it's being shown maybe in the native language of whatever it was, wherever it was produced, but then being shared someplace else. So, if we're watching a French film here in the US and we are, not necessarily up to speaking French, or we're not able to keep up, so, that translation will happen on the screen. So the people who understand the language can absolutely go ahead and enjoy it that way. But if they prefer, if they're not quite up to speed on it, then they can go ahead and they can, just read along to keep going with the story. So it's a preference kind of a thing generally for that, but it's not coming from it's not coming necessarily from the point of view of traditional accessibility. It's more just providing alternate ways for the audience to understand it. And again, there are some typical file formats for this particular approach as well. This one also has some 4. Now you'll notice this has got 5 different versions. There's some overlap between the different ones, which is absolutely typical. For all of these can be added after the video has been recorded, so as part of the post-processing, or it can be done live for any of these. So that's why there's a lot of overlap when people talk about it. And the way that these are created can vary. So you can do this, like humans can actually go in, listen to it, type it up, create the files that then get added. You can there's some technology solutions now, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Or people use a combination of both. And what I mean by that is people will sometimes have the technology go ahead and process it first, whether it's live or recorded. And then after the fact, maybe they'll have a human go through to clean it up, fill in the gaps, fix, typing errors or things that were misunderstood, to make a better version of what was done. All right, so that's the high level, quick view of what we're talking about. We're going to get into a little bit more detail here, but I did just want to level set for everybody what those differences are, because that may be the only thing you came for. So now you've got what you needed. The different approaches for this keep changing, right? As technology gets better, and certainly AI is going to just move this up forward. And frankly, AI is already in use. So everybody's like, oh, we now have AI. We've actually been using AI for this kind of stuff for a long time. So for example, if you are watching this on YouTube or on Facebook, you already have the option where you're watching it live to turn on live captioning. And that is sort of a form of closed captioning, right? Because you have the choice to turn it on or off. Now, it is being done by AI. So depending on how well it understands me, depending on how clear my feed is to that particular tool, the translations are going to be better or worse. Certainly when you start to get into things like technical terms, right? Jargon, that kind of thing. That's very often where you might see a problem in some of the words that are being picked up and the way they're being presented, which is why a lot of people will maybe use that for the initial kind of a feed, but then maybe go ahead and change it for if they're going to be, doing it, like I do my shows here, right? I do them live, but then they become what we call in the industry VOD, VOD. So it's video on demand. So I do a little post-processing, not a whole lot. So I do chop off like the very beginning of the show. Sometimes I'll do a little editing inside of it. And sometimes that's the point where somebody will download the file that was created by the technology translating what I'm saying, and then clean it up and then re-upload it so that it's cleaner for people who are going to be using it. Which leads us in a very nice segue into why would you do this, right? Why bother with it? Why go ahead and do this? Accessibility is near and dear here. So that is absolutely where this all started, right? So it was a way to give people who are hard of hearing or couldn't hear a way to be able to consume this kind of content, right? So whether it was a TV show, a movie, or whatever, it gave everybody a way to go ahead and get that kind of content um, without having, somebody next to them, having to write it down or communicate however they need to communicate. So that's sort of like the baseline, but that's not the only reason to do this. There are other times when it's helpful to any one of us. For example, if you are in an environment that's maybe too noisy for you to really be able to hear it well, it can be really helpful. Or if you're listening to something on the sly, at school or work, kind of thing. Sometimes it's helpful to be able to see, what's being said on the screen so you can keep the audio off and just pay attention to the video. It's also really helpful for those of us who consume a lot of stuff online, who are fans of running things at 1.5 or 2 times the speed, sometimes 3, because not only are we able to consume that content faster, but we can also then stay on top of what's being said, because sometimes it gets a little chipmunky when you're watching something that quickly, while you're watching, a video or whatever. So if you can not listen to the audio and just read what's going on, you can do it at 1.5, 2, or 3 times the speed, and it will automatically just keep going, right? So it will just stay on top of things, and I'll be able to keep on track with what's going on real time for the speed I'm watching it in, which hopefully that makes sense. But it's another good way to do it. The other benefit of this, okay, if you don't care about any of that stuff or it doesn't rank high enough for you to deal with it, is to get more SEO, right? Because it's another way, it's another format of the content that you're putting out there that the search engines can search, and they can look for those keywords and all that kind of stuff. So this is also another reason why this is a really good thing to do. And I highly recommend it. Now, I did mention that there are some sources that, automatically have this now built in. It started off, I think, with YouTube, and now I know Facebook is doing it as well. I don't think Twitter and places like that are doing it. And that's great, because it's certainly better than not doing it all. But like I said, there is some wonkiness in what's going across. So there is something to be aware of. There is also the idea that, you can have this done by a human after the fact. A human could, take one that was automated, clean it up, and then upload it so that you get a better version of it. Just know that, having the human do the whole thing obviously is going to be much more expensive than having the technology doing it and just leaving it there. And having the human take the automated and cleaning it up is going to be somewhere in the middle. When you're watching a live event, whether it's, news or a sporting event or, whatever, and you're getting live captioning, up until fairly recently, that was always a person or a team of people who were feverishly typing into the tool to get that information on screen, which is why there was always a tiny little bit of lag. But these people were really good at what they do. Plus, usually those broadcasts were delayed a little bit, which would give them a couple of extra seconds to get things in there. But that's also where you would get some of the funny things, because it would be a weird typo or something in the process. More and more, you're starting to see it as the technology option. But I just, know that if you're looking to hire somebody, so like, let's say you're doing an event, right? Let's say you're doing an event for your business or for your industry, and you're going to maybe do a hybrid thing, right? You've got some people in the audience and you've got some people watching remote. More and more, it's becoming expected that you have those kinds of accessibility solutions available to the audience. Now, that could be a combination of things like having a sign language interpreter physically there, and then, feeding that also with the broadcast. But there's also this type of a thing where you're actually talking and sharing it. And there are different ways to do that. So let's say I've got mine kind of set up. I did it on the fly here. Oh, and also I just realized I programmed it to the wrong case. So let me do this manually. So there are tools out there that will let you do this kind of thing too. Although like I said, I just threw this together, so it's not quite set up exactly right. Let me bring it up here. Okay, so this is something called Web Captioner. And what this is doing is, as I'm talking, it is actually putting the words on. But as you can see, we're getting little gaps, which I don't normally have with this tool. But like this is my new setup, and so I don't have the new config file for this. But I love this tool. First of all, it's web-based, right? So I'm just doing this over the web in a web browser. but it also is the only tool I've ever found that can keep up with me when I'm talking. But obviously, I had to have it configured right. But the idea is that you can have this kind of thing up and running as you're doing your presentation or you're talking, and it's just going to be there and getting all the words. And there's a lot of customization in it. Like you can change the font. Like I'm using a particular font there. It's highly readable, works well for dyslexic people, but there's a whole slew of them. It does really good with foreign languages. It works with a lot of tools. Like I use vMix. I think it also works with OBS and a bunch of other there's like direct plugins you can do with it. But that's a good example of, here, let me bring that up again just for a sec. Oh, 1 second. Here we go. But this is a good example of something that is captioning, right? So this is something that is here and it is just always here and nobody can turn it off, right? I'm the only one who has control of it. So if somebody's annoyed by it, and believe me, there will be people who complain. But if there are, I really have to work on the settings on this. I'm the only one who can turn it on and off, as opposed to if you're doing closed captioning, then that's something each person has control over. Now, when you are doing your presentation or your event or whatever, not everybody's aware of the fact that it's there and either need to be told that they can turn it on or need to be told that it can be turned off. So this happens, I'm seeing it a lot in Zoom presentations and events, because now in Zoom, they've got it built in as well. It's okay. They'll get better. But some people get annoyed. I don't want that on my screen, and then you have to tell them how to turn it off. Or then there are people who are looking for it who don't realize, who are like, oh, don't you have captioning on this? And you have to tell them how to turn it on. So understand that the audiences are becoming more aware of the fact that this A should be there and B is an option. But depending on what environment you're in, they may or may not know the secret handshakes. So you're going to want to go ahead and share that kind of information. Alrighty. So if you're interested in doing this kind of thing, as I said, there's a bunch of different ways, but just at a high level, you can do this yourself, right? So you can go ahead and, like, if you work off of a script, you can take that script. There are various tools, both online tools and desktop tools. Some are free, some are paid, that you can put that text in and then you can sync it to your video. Most of the video editing tools have a way to bring that kind of file in and then let you adjust so that everything is in sync, because obviously you wouldn't want your captioning to be, 5 minutes before or ahead of what it is that you're doing in the moment. It is labor intensive, so just be aware of that. You can also hire people to do that for you. It is labor intensive, so it's not going to be cheap, but it is an option. And there are also online services that will do it. And what a lot of those will do, that those tend to be a little better in price because they have their own tools that will take, whether you're sending them, a text file or they're just pulling it from the video, they're starting with more of that hybrid thing where they're using technology to kind of jumpstart the project, and then they have humans go in and actually, do that final syncing and fixing typos and that kind of thing. And then, of course, there are things like Web Captioner that I just showed you where you can, put it on the screen and you can put it wherever you want. A lot of times people are like, well, if it's down here, it is it's captioning. And if it's, someplace else, it's something else. And it's not. The positioning is really depending on the framing of your shot. So yes, traditionally you tend to see closed captioning down here, but that's not always the case. So there is some flexibility about it. So the right name for the type that you're doing is not tied to the position in whatever screen, people are looking at. Just be aware of that. So for example, like I was doing it up in the one corner, but I have total control over that and I can move it wherever I want. Let's see if we can get it to behave again for another second. So if I just keep talking and talking and talking, and there it is. So I can actually go ahead and I can change the position of it and move it, wherever I want. And that doesn't change the fact that it's providing some context for people. And I used to do this all the time and I got out of the habit because I was having trouble with my other machine. But now that I have the new machine, I really need to get this dialed in and start using it again. If you want to add captioning to your stream, let's say you're streaming to YouTube or Facebook, you're going to want to go in. This seems to be how they're always changing these platforms. So sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. But anytime you're setting up your stream or your event or whatever, you're going to want to go in through all the settings to see, do you need to turn on captioning or not? Right now, it seems to be the default for most, but every so often I double check and it's gone again. So you do want to keep an eye on that. If you want to upload captions, so whether you're going to do that after the fact, because um, you pulled it down, and you cleaned it up and you're putting it up, or you're adding it after the fact just because that's your workflow. I'm not going to get into the processes here. Again, if you really want to, if you want me to go through that for you, I'm happy to do so, but it would have to be a show for each platform because they're so different. But basically, the concept is that you would go into whatever part of the tool that platform is using for you to like add, you know, thumbnails to the video, or if you do some trimming and that kind of stuff. Usually that's where you're going to find the option to upload your particular version of your captioning. In most of the case, you're going to be doing closed captioning at that point. Let me just see if there's any other. So you're going to want to check, the particular platform, and just be aware that if you are on different platforms and you want to do this, one may accept one file format for that type of thing, and one may only accept another. So it's unfortunately, you're not always going to be able to get away with doing one. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. So you want to do your research on that ahead of time so that you're getting the most value out of your effort. But you do want to be aware of that and just know that that's a possibility. So that's good. If you're going to create your own, if you're going to adjust any settings on it, do pay a lot of attention to contrast. So like, for example, in this one that I've got that I'm playing with, it is got a black background and white text. And like I said, I used a particular font and I made that font a certain size. Now, again, it doesn't have to be this box. I could have made it, I could have made it a lower third kind of thing. I could have put it above my head. There's a lot of different ways that I could have done this. But the important thing is the font size, and the contrast between the backgrounds. So like I have a lot of color, so that's why I used a black background for it, because that way, if I was going to move it around, because some of them are transparent, so it'll show like over whatever your background is, you're going to want to make sure that there's enough contrast no matter where you put it. So I always just put a full color background behind it just to make sure that it's easier and cleaner that way. Okay, so before I wrap up, I did just want to remind you that if you have any questions, if you have any comments, if there's a topic you want me to cover, please go to yourtechcoach.com. There's a form there where you can go ahead and let me know what it is that you're looking for. Or if you have a quick question that I can answer, quickly in an email, I'm happy to do that. So feel free to go ahead and reach out. We do have some things coming, so if you want to get on the mailing list, you can do that there. And where's the other one? There's the other one. If you are interested in this or anything else tech related and you need some one-on-one coaching, that is also an option. So if you go to yourtechcoach.com/appointments, more than happy to get on a Zoom call with you and we can talk through whatever it is that you need, or if you need a particular service, there are some things that I can offer to help you out with. So please feel free, reach out, don't be shy. All right, so while we're wrapping this up, let me just make sure I've got all the major points covered. The other thing to keep in mind is if you are going to put it, in something like this, and maybe you're going to do transparent, be very aware of what you're wearing, right? Because like if I had a light color shirt on like this, and this was, captioning and it was transparent, people would be able to read maybe, I can never get the right and left ready. They might be able to read the beginning, and then it might disappear on my shirt, and then it might be visible again. So you do want to be aware of everything that is on the screen when you are doing this kind of thing, because you don't want to put all that effort in and then frustrate people more because they can't read everything and stay up to date on it. All right. I think that covers pretty much everything. Yes. Okay. I always check my notes because, hey, I'm human. And my brain does dump out occasionally. So I hope that helped. I hope that if you were curious about it, or you just wanted to know about the terminology, or if maybe you're working on a project where this has come up and people are like, we need to do this. Now you've hopefully got a little bit better understanding of what the differences are, and how you're going to want to best use them. There is no single best solution. So you really need to focus on your budget, let's be honest, but also what's going to serve your audience the best, and try to find the happy balance there. Like I said, if you are on an environment where they do offer the automated captioning, sometimes that's better than nothing. And then you can always make it, the better version later for people who are rewatching, or if you are, maybe selling it as part of a course, or maybe as part of your event. Maybe a lot of times people will there's some sort of upsell where you can get a recording of it after the fact, so you can watch it again, because that's very helpful. You tend to miss things in live events. That's a good time to go ahead and add that better version of it for the people who need it. So it's just something to think about, and just be aware, like when you're out watching things, to know that, hey, if you're having a little trouble understanding it, somebody's talking too fast, or you're just not in a good environment, do look, because in a lot of the cases now, there is some form of captioning, whether it's open, closed, what have you, that is available to you. And sometimes it's just a matter of clicking on that screen to go ahead and find the one find the control to turn it on and off. If, however, you're watching something and it's always on the screen and that bothers you, please try to be aware of the fact that while this may be annoying to you, it may be super helpful to somebody else, and we're all sharing the same space in this world, and so we're trying to help each other out. So do be aware of that, because I have had people get a little upset about it, and we had to have the conversation. All right, everybody. As always, feel free to reach out anytime. I forgot this. If you're new here, my name is Kathleen. I'm your tech coach. Basically, my day job is technology. It's also my hobby. So I live in this world 24/7. I love it. I love the possibility of it. I love playing with it. But I understand not everybody can do that. Not everybody has that kind of time to kill. You have other things to focus on. So in my real world, like all of my friends, family, neighbors, if they have a question, if they need help with something, they reach out. I know not everybody has somebody, so that's why we're here. So please don't hesitate to reach out. I do have it's not a mistake. So I really need to get consistent, but it's yourtechcoach.net and .com. It's the same location. So feel free to go ahead and reach out if you have any questions. Or you can also go ahead and reach out in the comments. I do come back and check those. Just understand it takes me a little time because there's a lot of them and only one of me. So I hope everybody's having a good week. I hope that you will go and check out some captions and maybe give it a try. If you've never tried watching something with captions going, may need to do it once or twice, but you may find that it's really beneficial. Actually, here's another side. So here's an extra tip for those of you who slog all the way through to the end. Here's a bonus tip. Studies have shown that it actually helps improve reading skills and comprehension if you are watching a movie or TV show, whatever, with the captions on, and it's really good for the kids. The kids pick up and increase their skills faster with that kind of practice going on. So bonus tip going out there for you, for anybody who might be interested in that. Anyway, have a good one. We are here every Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern time. You're welcome to come and hang out in the chat, which I admit I'm not paying too much attention to, but okay. I said hi to everybody. So feel free to swing by, but if not, go ahead and jump into the comments or go to the website and let me know what your questions are, anything you want more information on. And if you want me to dive deeper into any one of these or all of them, let me know. I am happy to do so. I love this kind of stuff. And I've actually played in all of the sandboxes, so I can give you some real world experience tips as well. All right, everybody, have a good one. I'm going to go and feed the puppy. We will talk again soon. Bye.